So, I mean, we did not sleep, so.
Okay, I think we're set up. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being with us today. I am so pleased that coming to us from the UK is an incredibly wonderful violinist, and I think, you know, a wonderful musician, but I always like to say, like, one of the most wonderful human beings I've ever encountered in music, and that's Elena Urioste. And as you know, we're really proud of her, extra proud, because she is an alum of our program. She is, I hope you read some of the bio info and also the connection to the jukebox that she and her husband Tom made during COVID. It was so popular and so important to people that it was made into a CD, and it's you know, still out there on YouTube and other places. And it just, they had a lot of fun, but they also cheered up a lot of people with that. She's she's a wonderful violinist, as I said earlier, and has had a very successful career. In recent times has played with the Boston Symphony, with a number of major orchestras in Europe, and does an extensive amount of chamber music, as well as running yoga for musicians under the name of Intermission. So she is a real Renaissance person as a musician, and just, you know, I'm just so excited whenever we can bring her here, even if she's several thousand miles away. This is the first time we're taking this system for flight electronically. I think we're in good shape, but we'll go on, and we just have this hour to be with her. I'm so thankful. Maybe you can just welcome Elena Urioste to with me. And you can see her on the side screens here. The artists will be able to see her when she's talking to them on the screen in the back. So we hope you can keep your attention going all the right directions. Our first performer today is somebody who I am so thrilled. She is not only a violinist, but a violist, our famous and beloved double threats here in the program. And she will be playing for you the second movement of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. She's accompanied by Maria del Orefice, and Penny is also a student of Jay Freivogel. Penny Tang.
Yay, bravo. That was fantastic. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Um, oh, it's such a pleasure to hear you play, and I loved it. Thank you so much for that. I love the tempo. I loved how I always think of this as what's the word? A barcarolle, like where you're yeah, on the water and I thought you captured that beautifully. Sometimes this can be incredibly slowly, and I was very relieved that it wasn't. So yeah, I loved it. It felt like a lullaby, where you're, rocking a baby to sleep and you really have that kept that constant flow, which I just thought was beautiful. I thought we could talk about a few ideas of kind of what happens within the bigger, or rather what happens within the smaller groups. I thought you had lovely long lines and a really nice sense of where you were going, although I think you can never spell that out too clearly to the audience. Like no one ever thinks, oh wow, she phrased too much. So we can always be like super clear about where our destination is in the phrase, just as you would in a sentence. But what I really wanted to focus on was some details about basically how, like the connective tissue of the little movements. That sounded kind of gross, sorry. But I meant, what I mean is, so with the left hand, sometimes I feel like the vibrato starts and stops at the same point in each note. So if I were to really micromanage it, it is often delayed by just a little bit. So you put the finger down, there's a split second where it's still and then it wiggles. And I would love to play with the way you transfer the wiggle from one finger to the next. So rather than it being like a visual I like to use is like, rather than like if you have a French fry and you dip each one in ketchup so that there's the same amount of ketchup and like you dip it in the same way, it's like a lovely seasoning that sort of permeates everything, and not in the same way all the time and not with the same intensity, but so that it becomes something that you don't notice in the sense of like, oh, what a nice vibrato, but actually it's just, oh wow, like what lovely shapes she's making and what a singing quality she has, even though she's not singing. Do you know what I mean? So that's one thing I think we can work on with the left hand. And sort of not unrelated with the bow, I often felt that the motion, or like the speed of each bow or the trajectory of each bow was very much the same. So not in a bad way, but it was sort of constant, or if there was any tendency, it would speed up a bit in the middle. But with this music, where it can feel, I use the word barcarolle or rocking, the flip side of that is we don't want it to sound seasick. So like always going like this and always going like this and always going, and I didn't feel seasick, obviously, but I wonder if you can use the bow to kind of erase bar lines and erase slurs. So practically speaking, saving a little bit and spending so that you can really feel a bit of momentum as you change bows where appropriate. So those are my first two ideas that I think we can work on. With the bow, I think actually with both hands, I think this is particularly true when you have a tied note. So and a tied note where the harmony changes while you're still soaring. So like you're going like this, you're going like this, and then something changes, and I feel we have to react to that. And we have to have enough space, enough bow saved, enough wiggle left in the sort of piggy bank to really make those ties special and different from what was coming before. So maybe can you start again, and we can just start and stop a little bit. I know it's hard with screens and stuff, but I'll do my best. Good. So I noticed there, it's lovely. So all of what I'm saying is sort of like extra icing on the cake. You can take or leave it. But what I noticed, I don't know whether to play because I don't know whether my sound is. I'm going to get my violin, and if it sounds horrible and I've not done the mic thing properly, you tell me, and then I'll just go back to talking. What I felt was da 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 ya da ya da 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 ya da da. It was like if you were to draw it, I don't know, I tend to think very visually. So if I like drew that with a pencil or a crayon, it like the shape would look the same. And I wonder if this squiggle can go in maybe different directions sometimes. Sorry, I just realized I haven't even taken this out of its pajamas. Second. Okay, does this sound like a violin or does this sound like static? Is that terrible? Okay. Let me just try one thing, and if this doesn't work. I'm really out of the Zoom swing of things. 1 second. Original sound. Okay. How about this? Better? Okay. So instead of, I'm going to exaggerate what I heard. Total exaggeration. But what if they were just totally different?
Losing you. We lost you.
All right, forget it. 1 second. Gosh, nothing makes you feel quite like a elderly person like getting Zoom settings wrong. 1 second. Okay. Oh no. Is this do I sound normal now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just hold it and it will look like I'm playing the violin. So what if one of them da 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 ya da 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 da, and you can, I'll try and illustrate it just with the air. So saving a little bit da 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 ya da, or da 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 ya da 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 ya da, so that the bow speed is never constant or just back and forth or like automatic. It's always, you're always thinking of the curve of the slur and the curve of the line. Again, I think very visually, so I like to actually imagine. Sometimes it sort of just mimics the shape on the page, goes up, maybe you increase a little bit, the notes go down, you decrease a little bit. So we can really feel those peaks and valleys. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, try one more time for the beginning. And there's like, I think, infinite ways to play this music. It is so inherently simple, but there's room for these tiny little details within this beautiful spinning line. So, I mean, I won't make you do it in front of everyone, but I think in the practice room, probably I'm a horrendous singer, as you just heard. But I think singing is just such a great educational tool for us, even if no one else needs to hear it. Just so, because sometimes it just provides all the answers, like how you think one note should fall to the next. So you can do that in your mind right now. Again, I won't make you do that in front of everyone. Oh my gosh, that was like, I thought that was amazing. That sounded so expensive. Do you know what I mean? That was like totally next level. And again, you could decide that you liked that way, and you might try like a million other things. Like I said, I don't think there's like a right or wrong way to do it. Last way to enhance this even more that I've found really effective. I was noticing you make like you sort of cue yourself in like this tiny little movement. And I also start uppo, so I love your uppo. But what if your cue was less of a little physical movement and more of a breath that was already going with what the piano or with what the orchestra is doing, that you're as the accompaniment is you're already getting ready, 1 2 3, with an inhale or an exhale, whatever you choose, so that your impulse with your bow is an extension of what you've done with your lungs. So that's the first way I like to use breathing, basically to prepare myself for putting the bow on the string, so that it's not, so that the arms aren't separate from the inside of the body, which is very easy to do playing a string instrument, because it is like so much outside the body. We have no use for air, functionally speaking, but if we can use it artistically to our advantage, it's a game changer. And then I think you can also use this sense of breathing to develop your sound. So especially when you're on a long sustained note, or really making a shape with the bow, what if you also used the inhalations and exhalations of your lungs to help assist with that? Okay, so try that one more time. It's a bit hard to communicate over a screen and without being able to play, but I feel like you're gonna get it. So just start to tune into what your breath is doing and how you can use it to help you change your sound. Great. So how is that feeling? Does it feel any different when you start to think about what's going on inside? What is it like? What changes do you notice?
I guess it's more natural to phrase with the line. Like, it's easier to know where everything is going.
Does it make you feel, I remember when I started really thinking about breathing during my playing, I felt incredibly dizzy. So that's normal, because breathing is such a funny thing, right? We have automatic settings, because if we stop, we die. So our bodies are going to do it for us no matter what. But when we choose to breathe intentionally and with real purpose and real to help ourselves achieve what we want to do musically, I don't know, I think it's kind of magical, actually, just tuning into this simple thing that we would be doing anyway, but we're doing it now purposefully. I think it's quite cool, but if you're not used to it, it can make you feel a little bit lightheaded and dizzy, so that's normal. Excuse me. I don't normally talk this much. I loved everything you just did, except the long high C that's tied over. I felt like you could feel those harmonic changes. Can you try somewhere around there one more time while I take another sip of tea? Yeah, I feel like you give up at the last second. Like if it were me, I would want like this much bow, and I would want, this is where I think this is a great example of how you can think about the left hand, like how are the wiggles transferring from one another? I love watching cellists play, actually. I know you've got one in the family. Like the way, because it's just so much more obvious somehow how I know this isn't how cellists vibrate, but like you can see the transfer of activity from finger to finger more clearly than on the violin, where it's like everything is smaller and faster. So maybe have a look at your friends in the orchestra or your mom, like what is happening between finger to finger, and like, can we do that on the violin? Obviously the mechanics are a little bit different, but I love thinking about, it's not just on and off, like plonk it down, then wiggle it, plonk it down, wiggle it, but actually how can we, like even sideways, can you see that? Like how can the wiggle go from, so what would be happening here? From 3 to 2? Rather than vibrate, vibrate, stop, change fingers, vibrate. You know what I mean? Like if it were a singer, would the air start spinning even faster, or would it slow down? Again, no wrong answers, no right answers, but it's just starting to think about how not only each note, but the little space between each note, and how one curves into the next. It's like speaking, basically. You have the words, and then you have the way the words string together. So if we always stopped in between every word, it would sound insane. So we just have to start thinking about how it all, if it's a bracelet, like how would the beads look next to each other? Yeah, so practically speaking, again, I would save a little bit more bow, and then just give an extra % of your brain to the way the 3 moves to the 2, or whatever you're using. Okay, last time. Oh, I loved that. That was so nice. That was like a great singer. I always think, obviously now you've heard my singing, it's not in my future, but I've always thought that it must be the greatest feeling in the world to be able to do that with the voice, to just like soar and then fall into whatever comes next. I've actually heard from singers that it doesn't feel nearly as nice as it sounds. But I like to keep the illusion alive that would feel really great. But if we can emulate that as much as possible, I think this is, while being a lullaby, it's like a semi-operatic one. So it's like a lullaby that a opera singer is singing their child. I don't know. You can make up a narrative. But that was incredibly beautiful. I would say there's no harm in thinking, it might seem like an overwhelming task, but there's no harm in thinking like not only of every note, but of the connection between every note, because that's when things start sounding really, I used the word expensive before, but it's like next level. It just sounds really fancy, and very exciting. Do you want to keep going on, or I'm bad at time management, so if there's anything specific that you want to work on. Sorry?
We may be at time. in a minute or two.
Okay. Do you have anything specific that you want to work on? Then can you just like play the next couple phrases until the noodles start?
Okay.
Oh, actually, I did want to say something. So the phrase that you're about to play, let me hear that it's not in like happy, lovely C major anymore. Like let the vibrato, let the pace of bowing, let the way that you breathe really reflect the shift in key and mood and the storminess that's happening underneath you. Sorry, one interruption. I wish I could play it, but it would probably sound not the way I want it anyway. But for each of these phrases, when this comes back, sorry, you're gonna have to endure my singing again. This is very tense, right? And then, just kidding, it's fine. Back to our lullaby. So I think the bow can really reflect that. Like maybe something a bit stickier to feel this chromaticism. And then when we get back to C major, something airier and easier. And this again is something that you can also do from the inside out. Like maybe the can be one long inhale and then and that's what I sort of instinctively do as I'm thinking about it. I don't know whether that would work, whether that would be how you'd want to coordinate it, but something like that. Just like keep thinking of ways that the breathing can inform what you're doing. Sorry, this is like sort of my in conclusion thing, because I do like one of my great frustrations with the violin is that we have not only one, but two pieces of equipment required to make our music, which theoretically starts from the inside, from the heart, from the brain. And then we have to like work doubly hard to get it out through this stuff. So however I can connect what's coming out to actually what's inside physically, anatomically, I like to do that because it makes me feel like I have a direct connection to the process, like a singer might, or like a woodwind player might, they're using their air. So it makes me feel less like it's in my hands and somehow more like it's coming from the soul. I don't know, that's a bit cheesy, but like coming from literally inside. So keep thinking of ways to do that. Allow that to inform the way you use your bow, the way you save your bow, the way you transfer the energy and the weight from finger to finger. Let it all come from the inside out. And I don't know, I've just found like that solves a lot of problems rather than worrying about like, oh, well, what do I do with this? And then how do I wiggle? Like somehow that stuff kind of figures itself out if you're coming from an internal place, if that makes sense. Okay, I think I'm out of time, but so nice to hear you. what room are you in?
We're in the big room, the room 222, where it was renovated a few years ago. So
So it's not carpeted anymore.
you know, they put this. It's a fake wood floor and
Wow.
brighter light, and then the shades so that we don't have to see people protesting across the street, or whatever goes on. You know, sometimes it's parties and things like that. Yeah, so we're in here, and actually the camera's installed, so I don't have to lug that around. I just have this microphone's better than the ones they have hooked to the system, so it helps.
Very cool.
A little bit helps. So our next performer is Elliot Anderson. Elliot will be playing the Sanson Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso, and Elliot's had some big success with this already. He's won a competition and will solo with the Philadelphia Young Artists Orchestra in June, is it? It's June, yeah? So anyway, maybe, you know, he'll give us all a little preview of what folks will hear at that concert. He's a student of Juliet Kang, and his accompanist is Ramsey Reyes.
Great. Oh, fantastic. So when is the performance with orchestra?
June 2nd.
Sorry?
June 2nd.
June 2nd. So you probably haven't rehearsed with them yet. And have you played with an orchestra before?
No.
No, okay. It's super exciting. I think it's like one of the most fun things in the world. But it is a little bit different than playing with the piano, well, than playing with one person. I think like everything is chamber music basically, including playing a concerto or a showpiece. But even though you are going to be the one standing in front, I think it's arguably even more important to communicate like you would be with one person or in a string quartet or piano trio or anything like that. So I think even with your pianist, you can be much more sort of physically demonstrative about what you want to do, if you sort of wish something would go a slightly different way, rather than just sort of like plowing ahead or keeping to yourself and assuming that they'll figure it out. I mean, your colleague is lovely and wonderful, but I think it's just so much nicer for everyone to feel like there's an open conversation happening. So I think not that you have to do like any big crazy moves just for the sake of it, but I think, you know, even like with body language, making them feel like they're a part of the process, whether it's someone playing the piano or whether it's a whole orchestra, you know, making eye contact, just like having your body be like inviting everyone into your world, basically. And I think it starts with the people on stage, and then together you can all create a sort of welcoming space that the audience will want to join also. I mean, I think it's really remarkable, sort of how contagious is a terrible word, but like, well, contagious are our body languages. Like if you just think about seeing someone yawn, you yawn, right? Or like oftentimes we do. I think the same is true of breathing. I know I'm like pretty obsessed with breathing, but I know when I'm around someone, like in a yoga class or sitting on the train, and I see someone who's breathing really fully and like not bashfully, I always find it really inspiring. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to breathe like that person. That seems really good. I want to do that. I want to feel that good. And I think if you bring that sort of energy on stage, like I'm going to breathe and create expansive space, the audience really responds to it. So even if you just walk out and take a few breaths that center you, make the orchestra feel like you're all on the same wavelength together, and invite the audience in, then it really becomes a shared experience rather than like, oh my gosh, I'm standing up in front of an orchestra and I'm playing this hard piece and which is a way I've also often felt. So I feel like playing concertos, it's all about how you've done the work. Obviously, you're going to be fine no matter what happens. But it's just about now creating as enjoyable an experience as possible for us, for the other musicians on stage, and for the people who've come to listen to you. And I think it's also important to note, sorry, this is like a little concerto diatribe, but it's stuff I've had to tell myself over and over and over for like 25 years. Everyone there is rooting for you. Like no one comes to a concert wanting it to be bad. Everyone wants, the people on stage to do well and to soar and to feel comfortable. And I like to remind myself of that. Like actually everyone here is on my team. So like using that energy to lift myself up has been another helpful tool for me. But yeah, I think what we can work on in the next however many minutes we have is just finding ways to show, with your body, with your energy, whatever that means to you, but also musically what you want. Because this piece is so full of like very dramatic and very wonderful shifts in color. This was actually the very first piece I ever played with orchestra. So I have like a very youthful story that I made up for myself, and I never want to like impose my thoughts about any piece of music on someone else. But I do think you can play much more with these shifts of character. I think it's almost like a caricature, this piece, like the beginning is, oh, look at me, I'm so sad. And then like, then some funny march, and then like a very heartfelt love song. But to me, it's all like, it's like you're seeing an opera singer or someone in a play or a clown up close. You see like this crazy dramatic makeup, the smile painted on, the tears painted on, and I want to feel that, and you're playing more. And that's what I mean by like you can just show everything way more musically and physically with your colleagues. So maybe let's start again from the beginning. What do you feel is the character of this opening, these few phrases? Melancholic, love it. Yes. So how are you going to demonstrate that?
I always try to make like the first two notes in that say repeating section sound like a sigh.
Love that. I love it. Yeah. So even more, let's just play it again. Yeah. Good. Okay, so like I was asking, sorry, Penny to do, can you use your breath? Like you said exactly what I wanted you to say, actually, which was sigh. Can you actually almost sigh? So like when you're getting ready to put the bow on the string, you don't have to make an audible sound, but I definitely, it would be really hard to do this on an inhale. I think it's definitely, so can you actually exhale through it? And then if you want to get really fancy, I mean, I think each of these figures is very much a da, 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 da. Like there's a clear building up and a release. So if you want to play around with actually doing that each time, you might definitely get lightheaded. But I think that will really contribute to this sort of bellows-ish feeling of this music. Like it's all sort of in, out, like slightly more sustained, in, out, rest. You know what I mean? Like that's very simplistic, but see if you can use your breath to help achieve this effect. It sounds great. So this is just, again, adding icing on the cake, but like as if the icing was coming from inside the cake. Great. It sounds sounds fantastic. I don't know whether you were breathing. I'm not obviously not close enough. I can't hear or see, but whatever you did sounded wonderful, and just keep playing around with it. One thing I noticed that maybe this is just to me, but it gets a little distracting. The swaying, it's not that I want you to be totally still, but I love for people to be aware when their movements are habitual. So to me, like I'm going like this, I'm sitting down obviously, but yeah, there's just like a gentle swaying, and there's nothing bad about that. But it actually felt sometimes like you were moving against the grain of the music. Like I think organic movement is wonderful, and at times it can serve what you're doing, especially if you're sort of moving in the same direction as your bow, or the providing resistance to your bow with your violin, whatever it is. But when I see a movement that seemingly doesn't have anything to do with the musical phrasing, I just wonder sometimes whether it's like a weird expression of tension, not just with you, but with everyone. I see a lot of people like who have funny mouth movements, or who do things with their knees. And again, not that that's inherently bad, but I think it's just important to start to notice it, observe it, and just ask ourselves why it's happening. And if there's a way actually to use that energy, that motion, that activity, and to direct it somewhere really useful. So if you're swaying because maybe you feel a bit nervous or uncomfortable, maybe experiment with what would happen if you took that energy and pressed down through the soles of your feet, for example, to really feel like you're anchored, like a solid tree whose trunk is very much anchored, whose roots are in the ground, and then the top half, your branches, can be uninhibited. Does that make sense? Rather than the whole tree just sort of looping around like that. Just something to notice. Because again, like with an orchestra, I think you want all of the tricks and tools that you can to make yourself feel as comfortable and occupy as much space as you can. You want to feel like big and in control. Can you go on? Actually, let's skip to the... That was really, really great. So now something totally different. This is like sparkly and well, actually, what are your adjectives for this bit?
Like jumpy and playful.
Sorry?
Jumpy and playful.
Jumpy and playful. Cool. I love it. Jumpy and playful, but still minor. So like I'm jumpy and playful, but I've got a little cheeky scowl or something like that. I don't know, some little like jumpy and playful like a mosquito or something like with zing. one thing for me. Can you think there still is a slight bit of swaying, which now I'm fixated on. And again, it's not a problem. It's like it's not affecting what you're doing, but it does just give the impression of like something that's not quite. And I really want to feel, I want to feel that this is almost like maybe I think sometimes of a toy soldier a little bit, like that sort of like almost comical seriousness, but still playful, as you said. Can you think of bringing your weight ever so slightly back into your heels so that, yeah, and actually just raise the violin up like that. And then maybe imagine that you're activating your leg muscles just a little bit, like you're squeezing a brick in between them or something. Yeah, and already your violin is a little bit higher up than it used to be. So I feel a little bit, like my violin is super low when I play, so I definitely don't need anyone to stand like this. But I would love the feeling that you're strong and stable and rooted like a tree, and then you bring the violin to you rather than it's just a little bit tippy, if that makes sense. And again, it's this feeling of like you taking up your space and inviting everything in, from your instrument to your fellow musicians to your audience. Like you want to bring people to you in the most welcoming way. So try this one more time and just think about bringing your weight into your heels. You can even imagine that you're leaning back and an imaginary wall is supporting you a little bit. And just see how that makes the fiddle feel. I mean, it's so hard to tell on Zoom. Like, I never know what's going on. But I'm going to say that maybe it was my imagination, but it did feel like there was like added articulation that way. That again, it could have been like weird Zoom scratchiness, but I definitely think when you're bringing everything to you, when you have like gravity on your side, even like if you're leaning back ever so slightly and you're solid, and rather than like, I don't know how to explain it, rather than like going down this way with all of your body, it's sort of coming in a little bit more. Am I making sense? And it like everything's just a little bit closer to you, to your face, to your like activity center here. And I don't know, I feel like it makes things easier to articulate, just to manage. It makes everything a bit more concentrated. So I would start to play around with this. Like, how can I make myself, the tree trunk of myself, as solid as possible so that this can be nice and free. And that you can start to play a bit more. And I mean play, not like play the violin, but play like a child would play, play with making incredibly extreme characters. You can make funny faces in the mirror at yourself while you're playing. I love doing that with my chamber music colleagues. In fact, sometimes we don't even say words or like talk to each other. We just do like, ridiculous faces, and it somehow fixes all of our problems. We know exactly what we want to do because one of us has made an absurd face. And of course, you're probably not going to do that at the conductor, but a little bit of that is fantastic. And it puts people at ease. It shows clearly what you want to do. And it just communicates your intentions so nicely and so vividly. So that I think is your homework. Find ways of showing what you want in a very clear but authentic way to you. You don't have to copy anyone's movements, or you don't have to do anything I've said. But just find ways of like taking up more energetic space on stage, I think. And your colleagues will be so grateful for it, because it will just make you easier to follow. And then they'll be happier, you'll be happier, everyone will be happy. Yeah, and then just play up the characters as much as possible. You know, the end as obscenely happy as possible, the little sad song in the middle, or the romantic wistful thing in the middle, even more of that, even more funny toy soldiers, more of everything, I think. And that's yeah, just gotta like put stage makeup on everything. You'll be fit to go. Great. Bravo.
We'd like to once again thank Elena. I have to send everybody to other rehearsals and we have to reset, unfortunately. So I didn't even get a lot of time to chat with you, but thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Can you name your new CD? Because
Oh gosh, I can't say it. It's so
I
embarrassing.
thought you learned already.
No, okay,
Go for it.
I think it's called Le Temps Retrouvé, but I'm horrible at French, so that might be really not very good.
Close. We have a couple of folks who know French very well here. But anyway, it's a new fantastic CD of French composers, some of whom I've never heard of before. So anyway, thank you for being with us, and we got to get you here in person sometime.
Yes, please. I would love that.
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. Actually, can I have the kids stand in front of the other? Just keep you right there and have them stand in front of that and take a picture like you're.
Oh boy, okay. Tell me when you're gonna take it.
Okay. Yeah. You're completely visible. Count to three.
Okay.
Count 3, 1, 2, 3.
Good?
Yes, thank you, Elena.